Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you and welcome to the daily dosage of the Ledger of an Aspiring Speaker. And today, please just allow me to be a little bit controversial, a little bit, just a tad bit controversial. I've come to the observation that in the African context, especially in the past, when somebody spoke of learning, they meant the traditional pedagogical kind of education, whereby a student will be sitting in front of a teacher wielding a chalk, demonstrating his proficiency in a given subject matter, with the students assimilating or soaking in as much information as they could. And then I realized that in other societies, whilst they still do that, they have finally come to the realization that whilst the traditional learning methodology serves its purpose, it does not meet the demands of the modern day reality. And then I asked myself, how do we then transition from the traditional method of learning to what can actually help us to overcome the challenges and the realities of our time? Whilst doing that, I came across the concept of lifelong learning. Lifelong learning, as it is described, simple, it is the kind of learning that is self-initiated or self-initiated education, which is focused on personal development. And I'm going to underline that it is self-initiated and it is ongoing, simply to aid somebody's in personal development or in their pursuit of knowledge. When we went to the traditional schools, we were we didn't have the luxury to choose what to do. But because we were told that if you go to a formal education system, you will come out with some scholastic achievements that will equip you to find a job, thereafter to start to earn a living. So we wanted to excel as much as we could in academically. It was good and it served its purpose. But as the world evolves, we've come to the realization that it is just not enough to excel scholastically whilst other facets of your life are lagging behind. So, lifelong learning itself, it encourages ongoing meaning right until you die. Your pursuit of knowledge should never dry up. I remember there were things that I did not know. Even after graduating, I did not know. I mean, simple things, very, very simple things. I actually came to know that Russia and the United States of America, they share a very, very long history. Not only long history, they even share some borders to the extent that you could see Alaska from Russia. It's about a 3 kilometer distance in between the two. And I asked myself that, and I did ask myself, if they are so closely related or if there's such close proximity between the two, why then do they choose to fight their wars or to go and fight their turf wars in Europe? I still haven't got an answer. But as I keep on going in pursuit of knowledge, I will find my answer one day. So it's ongoing, I will keep on learning. And it is self initiated. When we went to school, we were forced by the demands of our parents, and the society placed on us to say you are not going to be anything worthwhile on this earth unless you attain a certain level of education. So even if I was not gifted scholastically, I had to go through the formal education system so that at the end of my tenure, I can produce a document that proves I was once in a classroom. And the purpose of that education, it was not to aid in my personal development. Yes, I would develop along the way, but the main or the crux of the learning, it was not to develop me personally. And it wasn't just in the pursuit of knowledge. I remember we were learning about all these various clouds, the cirrus, nimbus stratus, and all the other clouds that are in existence. At the time when I was learning them, it was to soak in as much as I could because our teacher was good in pronouncing those kind of words. And it seems so fancy if I could describe what a cirrus or a nimbus stratus cloud would look like and what would follow after that cloud. But before I go even further, I want to even expand so that people have got a general understanding of what learning is all about. Learning is a relatively, it's actually a relative permanent change in behavior that occurs as a result of practice and experience. It's a permanent change as in behavior that occurs as a result of practice and experience. We've all encountered things in our lives that shapes us into the beings that we are. Some of us have had to learn by imitation. We had to imitate somebody that we thought they were doing something well, and in the process, we learned something for ourselves. And some of us, we have learned by purely practicing some things. Let's think of children who are born. When they are born, they cannot walk, they cannot talk, they cannot do many of the things. And then one day, that child takes the first step, and he suddenly notices that he can move from point A to Z. And then tomorrow, he takes another step, and at the end of the week, he realizes that he can walk. Not can, not can, not only can he walk, he can even actually run. So it is by constantly doing the same act time and time again that you realize that you can do this. And in that process, you learn the practicalities of doing that specific thing. And for you to be a lifelong learner, it means there has to be a personal commitment and a thirst to learn something new on an ongoing basis. And there are tangible benefits that have been associated with lifelong learners. For instance, it can boost your confidence. Imagine you've always struggled on a certain aspect of your life. And then suddenly, because of your commitment to learn, you discover tricks on how you can handle that. It's an automatic and immediate boost to your confidence. So, the more you search and thirst for knowledge, the more you are going to find the things that will help you to achieve the things that you want to achieve. And as soon as you achieve whatever you set yourself to achieve, your confidence levels go up. Number two, it keeps your brain healthy and your mind sharp. I'm reminded of a certain gentleman. One day I went to this other church somewhere in Deep Slot. The man stood up and started to preach. As he was preaching, he kept on mumbling his words. He tried to bring some English vocabulary into his sermon, and every time he tried to preach in English, he stumbled and he stammered, he mumbled things, and do you know that I was once a teacher? After I lost my job as a teacher, I started working in the hospitality business. And ever since I started working in the hospitality business, there hasn't been a need for me to converse in English. And it is because of that I find myself struggling to communicate in English. Whilst my intention is not to show that proficiency in English amounts to anything, but because this man, there was a certain time in his life that he knew to have a conversation in English. But because they had come a point when his commitment to lifelong learning kept to a screeching halt, some of the things that he learned quickly evaporated from his mind. Is you keep your brains sharper and your mind in focus and healthy. It is not that he had forgotten the English terms. It is because his mind was not sharp enough and synchronized to his mouth. That's why the words could come out, but it could not come out in the order and the fashion that he had envisaged. Number three, lifelong learning equips you with some practical skills that can enhance your productivity. Let's assume you are a machinist working in a factory and you have been struggling on some other aspects of life in general. And some of the aspects could be related to your job. But in your thirst and hunger to learn more, you decide to enroll in a specific program or you decide to read a specific journal that gives you the insights and the perspective of what you ought to do to improve your efficiency. And then the following day, you bring that into your workplace, and whilst you do some trial and error, you realize that it actually works. Now, the result is not only are you going to borrow that perspective, but you are going to implement it going forward, leading to enhanced productivity. Many people that have committed to lifelong learning have found that the benefits of lifelong learning far exceed what they initially intimated or what they initially imagined. Because as you learn something, there is that hunger, there is that thirsty, or something is stirred in you that makes you want to know more. And as you keep on searching for more information and more knowledge, the more knowledgeable, the more productive, the more articulate you become. And number four, enhanced perspective. There are many times when we hold into a certain ideology or thinking, and we think this is the only thing there is to know. And we model our behaviors and our actions towards what we know. It could be something that even channels our belief system to act in a certain way. But as you embark on a journey to keep on learning, you realize that there is more that you did not know than what you already knew. So now, the first thing that comes into your mind upon realization that there was so much I didn't know compared to what I knew, your perspective broadens. It's as if some scales are lifted off your eyes and suddenly you start to see. Have you ever imagined why some students of lifelong learning seem to be receptive to change, seem to be open to new ideals, seem to be less dogmatic than the people that don't want to learn at all. It is because their perspective and their horizons have been broadened or elongated so that they could actually see far beyond their toes. But if you decide to shun lifelong learning, you're going to keep your ideologies, your thinking, and your perspectives, which can be narrow or even narrower than the narrowest tunnel. So, my message to you is as I saw evolve, I saw myself evolve from what I was when I gained consciousness of myself to where I am. None of those would have materialized if I remained dogmatic and steadfast to whatever I knew then. I then set myself on a journey to say, let me learn as much as I could. For instance, as we sit here as fellow Toastmasters, as we sit here as fellow humans, as we sit here in the communities that we are in, there is so much that we could learn or that we don't know. But if we immersed ourselves into the whole concept of learning on an ongoing basis, that we could learn. There was a moment when I never understood my public speaking blemishes. It was until I decided to enroll into a Toastmasters club and I had to deliver my first speech that when I looked around me, I realized that there was tons and tons and volumes of knowledge that I didn't know. But because now I had the reason to search for that knowledge, I searched, and when I searched, I was amazed at the things that I could gain. So, to close, lifelong learning is an ever evolving concept. Actually, the term itself evolved from lifelong learners, which was created by Leslie Watkins, who posited that learning is not confined to childhood or the classroom, but takes place throughout life. As long as you live, if you open your whatever's happening around you, if you open your gates to whatever is happening around you, you are going to see something. Once your eye sees something, you might learn something from it. If you open your ears to whatever is happening around you, you might hear something. Whatever you hear might be able to shape your perspective, might be able to shape your ideologies to the extent that some of the previously had idiosyncrasies are flushed out. As you allow in the new wine in your system, you suddenly realize that there is no space for both wine and old wine. After all, what humans want, it is that sense of fulfillment and development. And what a better way to find that fulfillment and purpose other than accepting new and novel things in your life. I have decided that in my pursuit of lifelong learning, I am going to share as much information as possible to those that dare to listen and say, until you die, keep on learning. Thank you. This was another daily dose of the Ledger of an Aspiring Speaker. Keep tuned for more. Thank you.